let's start this show. It's 10 p.m. and this is Talk Show Central RTV style. This is Royal, and tonight we're doing an easygoing politics show, or actually, it's a show about information. And I'm bringing in the next judge, Adela. How's it going? Let me bring her in. Here she comes in. Adela, how's it going? You doing all right?
Yes, I'm doing very, very well. Thank you. Thank you
Oh,
for
man.
having me and inviting me to your show.
Well, great. Thank you. I know you have plans. I know you want to do some stuff for us. I had a thing here. Yeah. You are now the 484th district judge. However, you don't take office till January. Am I right?
I'm the judge elect, and I do not have a Republican opponent in November. So, yes, God willing, I will take office January of 2023.
And let me ask you this now. And I mean, just because there's no opponent right now for the November elections, can an opponent arise and challenge you?
No, because the deadline for the Republican Party to designate a candidate expired December 14 of 2021.
Wow! So somebody definitely dropped the ball on the other side, right? Somebody should have ran, right? I mean, somebody could have run, and then
Yes.
they would have had a chance, hey, Sharky, what's going on? If you want to come in, let me know, and I'll send you the link, man. But yeah, and so it's a sure thing, and you're gonna be. I mean, you're not the judge yet, but it's a sure thing that you're going to be.
Well, yes, I would need one vote. If I get 0 votes, then I.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Pues no nomás porque estás corriendo vas a ganar. You have to have one vote.
Sí, I have.
Wow.
Yes, I'm going to be the only candidate there. There is no Republican candidate. But if nobody votes for me, not even me, then
you're gonna vote for yourself, so you're definitely the. No, pussy. That's good. But at least you don't have to worry about from here to November and what's going on. You can start planning on what the things you want to do, and that's why you wanted to come on the show. You wanted to come in and say, "Hey Ray, I want to come in. I want to tell the people what I want to do as the next judge on the 484th district, court." Now,
yes.
Why is this position important? What is your job as the district judge on 484th?
Well, let me explain that it is a district court. It's not a juvenile court exclusively.
Okay.
But it does have a preference for the juvenile justice system. But as a district court, that means that the judge will have the authority to handle all types of cases that regular district courts have, but with a preference on juvenile justice.
Well, okay, that takes us to this question. Okay, juvenile courts versus adult courts, what's the difference? I mean, is it court? I mean, don't you have 12 jurors, and you got your lawyers and of course yourself as the judge, and I mean, isn't it the same, or is there a difference?
No, there's difference, because the juvenile system is a system designed to help juveniles. We all often think of the juvenile court similar to the adult court, but no. The adult court is focused on public safety and punitive, punishment for criminal offenses. That's the adult system. The juvenile system also considers the safety of the public, of course, but the priority, well, not the priority, but it focuses on helping the child correct his behavior so that when he grows up, hopefully he can become a productive and successful citizen.
So Sharky says, "Do you handle this, or is she mistaken?"
No. For the most, it's a long process of the juvenile court system. I could go hours and hours, but stuff like truancy and those types of offenses, the district court that I'm handling would have jurisdiction, but for the most part, those are handled by the by municipal judges or justices of the peace, that type of judges. Uh, the district court handles more serious cases.
Wow. Okay. Cool. So now, what's your plan?
Well,
What do you plan to do once you actually take, you're in court and all that?
well, as you know, the focus of the juvenile system is to reform and help the juvenile, the
Right.
the minor, to help him. But I am going to add one thing, and that is prevention. I'm going to try to do something that I learned from Judge Vela. Judge Filemon Vela, a long time ago, I worked with him. I was a young prosecutor, a federal prosecutor. I was an assistant United States attorney. And I what I did was, what he would do is he would go to the schools, and yes, that is Judge Filemon Vela, and I would go to the schools with him, and and he would give lectures to the students, but he would also bring a prisoner to go talk to the students and basically tell them not to commit crimes because they would end up like him.
Right.
And I'm gonna follow that. I always thought, you know, he started that, and he wasn't a politician. He
Right.
didn't need to do that because he was a federal judge that's appointed for life. So he wasn't looking for votes or anything. He just wanted to help kids, not get into trouble. And I think it worked. I really do, and I'm going to do that. And I also want to start, a dialogue with teachers, because there's nobody that knows students better than teachers. They are with them 8 hours a day, every day. They're
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
them more than their parents, and they have a more objective opinion as to what the needs of that child, of what the needs of that child in particular may be. And I'm gonna that's those are the two things that I'm going to do that are not done right now and have never been done.
Which
Never.
is prevention, and of course interaction
Yes.
with the teachers. That kind
Interaction with the teachers, giving presentations to the school, because I have a background of being a teacher myself.
right. Right.
So I want to do these presentations, and I want to go talk to the students, and I want to use my teaching skills to see if I can prevent them even entering the juvenile criminal system.
Hey, Oscar, how's it going up there in San Antonio? Hope you're doing well. Yeah. I mean, you definitely teach this stuff, at the college, and the other subjects as well. Let me ask you this. Now, obviously, there's kids that go into the systems because they're mean, they're bad, they're se creen la gran cosa, lack of respect and all of that. But then there's other kids that somehow get pushed in there, get bullied into doing some stuff, and maybe because these kids have certain issues, and I mean, let's just say it, maybe they have some mental health issues. What are you going to do about this? What needs to happen with these type of kids?
Definitely, there are some mental issues that need to be addressed, and we are deficient in that. One of the things that I would like to do is get more psychologists or psychiatrists or mental health professionals involved. I think that right now there's very few that care for these children or provide services for these children,
Right.
and I'm not sure why there's no why all the there's this backlog of children waiting for evaluations, waiting to be serviced with mental health care.
Right.
And I'm looking in, I don't know how to solve that because I'm not sure how, but I've been speaking to some professionals that I know to see if I would have the authority or the budget to hire them, in addition to the to Texas Tropical,
Right.
that so
Right.
that maybe we can move it a little faster, so that I can have more doctors and psychologists looking at these children and move the process faster.
Well, let me ask you this. That brings to mind, man. Are these kids forgotten now? Is the system forgetting about these kids and just okay? Let's just send them to jail and then let's just send them to prison and let's get rid of the problem. Is that what the system is doing now, or is that how it's
No, no,
I mean,
no. I mean,
or is it just that
I
it's
would.
it's moving too slow?
It's moving too slow, and then with COVID, this is a situation that I have seen, and it's been going on for a long time, and I'm not really sure what the problem is. Maybe we don't have money. Maybe Cameron County can only hire a certain amount. I'm not sure,
Right.
but
Right.
I'm gonna fiercely try to fix it. One of
Right.
the things is the amount of time that a child has to wait to be evaluated on certain types of cases.
Right. Right.
I don't know if, a lot of people don't know. This is a common scenario
Right.
where a child gets into trouble at home. There's a lot of domestic violence
Right.
and
Right.
sexual assault, and there's a lot of drama happens in the house. One scenario, for example, is older child that lives at home. It's either the big brother, or the big cousin that is staying there for a while. Somehow, some way, sexually assaults the younger sibling or the younger little cousin, and the police is called either because the younger cousin tells somebody at school, or one of the parents
Figure
discovers
it out.
it, whatever, and in a fit of anger they call the police. These Some of these kids are very young, okay, so maybe there's a 10-year-old that was doing something to a 4-year-old,
Right. Right.
and in the juvenile justice system, it the ages are from 10 to not yet 17. So
Right.
here you have an 11-year-old or a 12-year-old in the finding himself in the criminal justice system because there's an allegation that he committed inappropriate behavior or some kind of abuse to a younger family member.
Right.
And it cannot just be the sexual assault, it can also be assaulting them without, how many times did your brother not beat up on you? How many times? I know I have 3 sons, and the older one sometimes played rough with the
Right.
younger one, and they're 6 years apart. But I never called the police.
Right.
So,
Right. Right.
and once that happens, there's two issues. One is the child has to be evaluated,
Mm.
and he has to wait his turn until there's a
Just
until
somebody to
there's
evaluate him, yeah.
right. There has to be a psychological evaluation to find out if he's a danger to the community or a
And,
danger
and
to
and
himself.
during that time, Adela, does he get to go back home, or where is he during
No,
that time? And how long
no,
does it take for him to get evaluated?
exactly. So he's incarcerated, and I want to use the word.
Wow.
It's not supposed to be. I'm not supposed to use the word incarcerated because he's a minor,
Well,
but
he's in
that's
a
what it
private
is.
holdings room,
So he's detained. He's deprived of his freedom.
right?
So you have this 10-year-old, 11-year-old, or 12-year-old all of a sudden
His
taken
world has
away,
totally changed.
and he's in jail, in juvie jail, waiting to be evaluated. And then that's not the only problemo. The
Right.
other problemo is he cannot go back home, because back home the victim of the
Lives there.
sexual assault or the is there, and he needs to be protected. So they have to find another place for him to go.
Wow.
What I'm getting at, it's on a case, every case is different, but
Right.
some cases are heartbreaking. Some cases are
Wow.
just you what I've seen is uh, children that are detained for sometimes months without their family, without,
Yeah.
and sometimes the facts are not that egregious. The
Wow.
facts of the case are
Yeah.
not do not merit that, and
Yeah.
the evaluation needs to be done faster. If they were adults, they could get out on they
They
could
can
get
get
out
out
on
on bail.
bond. But
Yeah.
because they're children and they have to be evaluated and placed and all of this and all of that,
Nemo.
basically they're treated worse. And
Wow.
and I think that must have, I have seen the faces of terror of these young kids that, maybe out of curiosity,
Yeah. Yeah.
they, I don't know,
Well, it's common psychology. It's common psychology. You study that in Psychology 101. Curiosity, exploring your body and all of that. I mean, it's especially with family members when they're really close. I mean, sleeping in the same beds. Maybe showering together. I mean, come on. I mean, cuando están de bebitos, how many times do parents put two babies together in a bathtub and y los bañan juntos and that kind of deal. I mean, so yeah, I mean,
it is
human nature is
so.
to be curious.
See,
Why am
so,
I different than you, and what do you have that's different than mine? And
and like I said, not all the cases
yeah,
justify such extreme, and yet our system, the reason why I say is broken is because there's no flexibility in the judge having the power to say, hold on a second, I don't think this is necessary to keep this child this long until he gets evaluated and until there's a placement. Am I, you know, so I'm just going to try really, really hard to that doesn't happen under my watch. That
wow,
because I think that is if that child did not have mental issues prior to this happening,
he
he's
sure will.
definitely gonna have some mental issues
Well, it's
after.
it's like this kid all of a sudden's in the real world, and we're not talking more or less about the gang members. We're talking about regular kids, good, decent kids that just
Exactly,
that just
regular
made a
kids.
dumb, stupid decision,
Mhm.
or I don't know. But let's see, Sharky's got a great question here. How do you feel about programs to help parents on dealing with troubled juveniles?
That I think that is the answer to a lot. The parent, it starts there.
Yeah,
It, I think that's another preventive measure. I want a parent interaction. I want the parents to get involved, because let's face it, family is where is the beginning, is the
yeah,
genesis of the problem. And
right.
if we want to prevent them from entering the criminal juvenile system and later going into the adult system, it
Right.
starts at home. Yes,
Right.
I
Right.
think I
And
want to
then he
encourage
says,
that.
"Do you ever get parents tell you, I don't know how to handle my kid?" Now, these are two different kids. The first one was some kid that's just innocent, that's just made a dumb decision. And the one that Sharky's talking about, this kid's a trouble kid. This might be a gang member. This might be a kid that,
Mhm.
I don't know, maybe doing some drugs or stealing stuff or that kind of deal. Two different type of kids, but they're both individuals and they both go through the same thing. Is that the? Am I right? Should there be a difference between maybe a level, a division as to okay, you're this type of kid, and yours is you're this type of kid, and or would that be
Well,
wrong?
no, no, no. And that's where the evaluation comes into play. That's why they get evaluated by the psychologist or so that we can know if this is one of those innocent kids. But in the meantime, they're all mixed up together, learning mañas one from the other, learning bad behavior from one from
Right.
the other. So the bad
Yeah.
apples are really poisoning the good apples because
Yeah.
while they're being evaluated, well, they're
So in other
learning
words,
bad things from each other.
the good or confused kid, the dumb kid, we can say the dumb kid,
See?
confused kid, good kid, all of a sudden is going to crime 101. Introduction to crime 101.
Mm-hmm.
Introduction to the habits of or becoming part of the drug environment or the gang environment rather.
Now, with regards to some bad kids, let us not forget that they're kids. And I do believe that kids can change.
Yeah.
Their brains are still not developed fully. And I, I'm not a professional. Let me just say that I'm not a professional psychologist.
Right.
I'm not a doctor, but I have done some research
Right.
and in my when I was a defense attorney and I defended some children that were in the juvenile system, I had to research it and I argued and I learned a lot. And that is that the brain is not developed and that it's not the same as the brain of an adult. And there is hope that that child can change through through education and
Yeah.
and that's number one. Number one, they can change first of all by a correct diagnosis of the problem. Is it a mental thing? Is it a is it an attitude thing? Is it peer pressure? What is the root of the behavior of the problem with the behavior? And only a professional can do that. Once that accountability, if there's no consequences, there's no learning. And third, then positive reinforcement, always rewarding them for good behavior. And finally, education.
Yeah, I mean you're right. You said Sharky many times. You have parents pushing.
Yes,
Go
yes.
ahead and read. They read the whole thing. Go ahead and read the whole thing.
Oh my God, Mr. Villarreal. Many times you also have parents pushing for their kids to be labeled bipolar and schizophrenic and depressed. And that is pure manipulation. Yes.
For the
See,
check.
of course.
I mean,
Of
the
course.
parents, some parents or bad parents
Mm-hmm.
have turned this into a business. I remember a friend of mine. I mean, my age. I saw him years ago at HB, and and I go, so what are you doing now? Because I had recently moved back to Brownsville. So what are you doing? I go, he said, me hice loco. And what do you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, me hice loco y ahora me manda cheque. And this was an adult, man. And it's like, I was at a restaurant the other day and I heard two friends talking and they go, man, I'll go do some crops, I'll go some migrant or what was it? Go up north and do the crop thing for like 3 months, come back and claim unemployment. I mean, yeah, it's within the system, but man, come on, you're taking advantage of the system.
And that it is so commonly used. and as I guess I've seen that defense over and over. The depression one, I'm depressed, I have low self-esteem, so it's okay for me to do all these bad things because I'm depressed.
Yeah,
And I you know I do believe that some of them do need mental health care, but a lot of them just need to grow up.
yeah,
And I'm not in the business, and my intent is not to ruin the life of a child. That's the last thing in the world that I would want to do. And I believe in second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seven chance, as many chances as a child
right,
needs,
right.
not at the expense of the safety of the community, and not at the expense of justice.
Claro. Yeah,
And also, there has to be consequences. There has to be consequence. Like, I've always, I grew up with an adult that had a mental illness. He was a paranoid schizophrenic.
wow.
Yes, yes. I lived with my uncle. My mother took care of him, and he lived with us. And one time he threw a chair at me, and I was a young adult, and I called 911. And they came and took my uncle Paco to jail, and then he was there a couple of days. He came back. He never threw a chair at me again.
Right,
So yes, he was really really sick, but he wasn't dumb.
right, right, right.
He
Yeah.
knew, I do this, I get consequences. So
Yeah,
anyway,
yeah. Well, the thing is, accountability is definitely needed to correct this bad behavior.
see,
We need a positive reinforcement, rewarding good behavior. Because
see, see,
I mean, you know what? As there was a case, I know, as you know, I'm a chess tutor. Years ago, there was a teacher that asked me to work with this kid. This kid was in the gang. Was involved with gangs. And somehow he was a family member. As he said, what? I would like for you to come in and teach him to play chess, and teach him to about critical thinking and making decisions and all that. So I did that. The kid changed. The kid changed,
exactly.
and not only was he behaving better, better grades, and everything about him changed. The use of chess, and the idea of good and bad, and that kind of deal. I
Mm-hmm.
don't remember more or less the ideas that I used, but it was involving chess. Well, later on, he went back to the gang system, and he became a leader in the gangs, and so
Wow.
then later on, a couple of years después, I get another call from the same man. Hey, let's work with this guy. Bring him back to the light. That kind of deal. So we did that. I managed to do that, and because he had a great foundation in chess, I was able to bring him back, and now he's a very productive young man. But a lot of times it's program of mentorships that will get these kids from the dark to the light, from being gang
Claro,
leaders
claro.
and pushers and druggers and rapists and
Yeah,
killers and all of that, to get him to become productive citizens. Yes,
yeah.
unfortunately, I mean, we're lacking agencies like that. I know years ago we had the Boys Club here on 8th Street, and they shut
Sí,
that down.
sí,
They shut
sí.
that down, and they turned it into the Boys and Girls Club, and that's good. But boys need a boys club. Girls need their girls club.
I
That deal.
agree. I totally,
There's so many
totally
things
agree.
that when the boys club shut down and it became Boys and Girls Club,
No,
many things were lost. Many good things were lost because you cannot teach a boy and a girl the same principles of life.
that's right.
You cannot.
That's
You
right.
you have to teach them the same principles of life, but there's no way to teach them at the same time, both to the boy and to the girl,
And
about the same
and
class.
it's very distracting to have the
Yes.
boys and the girls because of the hormones. All they
Well,
want to do is
yeah,
get a
that
girlfriend
too.
and get a boyfriend. He's got to, how can you teach them when all they want to do is, flirt with
Yeah.
each other? It's really hard. And I know that from experience too, because I tried teaching.
Yeah.
One time I tried teaching a confirmation class, and it was boys and girls, and my
Y
God,
eso que es una
my
religión. I mean, you think
God.
about it, it's religion, and
No,
so it
no,
would be.
no, no, no. they were all over each other. And I was here trying to teach about the Holy Spirit, but they were teaching themselves about sex. So
You know,
it's,
I mean,
you
times
know,
have definitely changed. Times have definitely changed because, well, back in my day, probably that wouldn't be happening. But,
no,
but,
it was,
you know, it's just, I mean, it has, we need to bring stuff like that back. You know, even the Boy Scouts. You know, now you have Boy Scouts and you have Girl Scouts, and now you have just Scouts because girls want to join the Boy Scouts and boys want to join the Girl Scouts. Hey, I mean, they have to have their own. You know, they have to have their own. And the thing,
I, and
it might not be the popular
yes,
opinion, but at some point, you know, both of them lose something. Both of them lose something
see,
because they
see.
can't be taught, you know, their own individuals. You know,
and
it's
and and there's no focus on what they're learning, because like I said, it's so distracting to have the opposite sex there, and
right.
you know you want to do other things. And I
Right.
totally agree.
No, but see, it was a challenge. The challenge is in safety, worth, and welfare for the
It's
community versus welfare for the child.
crazy.
I
That
mean,
that
that's what
is
it's for. You know,
that
hey,
is yeah.
send this kid to jail and throw away the key. You know why? What?
No, but at the same
How
time,
harmful is he going to be to the community?
see. So
Uh,
it's a balancing test, and it takes a lot of wisdom, and it takes a lot of experience to be able to balance that, the safety of the community and what's in the best interest of the child, and tough decisions. And I've had to do those tough decisions that are heartbreaking, but you got to do them,
Yeah,
and
well,
it
you
is
know,
what it is.
I have a friend coming in, Adela. This
Okay.
is a surprise. I have a friend, and my friend's coming in from the education system, from the educational point of view.
Yay! Yeah,
And so
that's what I want. That's what I
there
want
you
to
go.
talk to them.
And here is my beautiful, wonderful friend, Angela Churchill. How's it going,
Hey, how's it
Angela?
going? Hi,
I'm gonna put
Adela.
you up here.
Hi. And that's fantastic that it's from the education system, because that's what I want to do, is talk to the teachers. They are at the front of all of these juvenile justice issues, believe it or not.
Have you been
They
hearing our
are.
conversation, Angela?
No, I hadn't, but I did. I believe I heard her before.
Right. So
Yeah.
the thing is, we're tackling here the juveniles and how going through the system, you know, and you know how long it takes and that kind of deal. So let's get a perspective from a administrator. You're an administrator at your school, you know, and obviously you have kids that do stupid things, you know, dumb things, and they're good kids, and then you got kids that are just bad, lousy troublemakers, and they do rotten things. And so how do you deal with that and in connection with, you know, juvenile, the whole juvenile system, and you know, deciding how do you send them to court, or at what point do you call the cops and that kind of do. Am I right, Adela? Is that kind of
Yes,
what we want
yes,
to hear?
yes.
Yeah. So usually, from an administrative perspective, we don't call the cops unless it's something dealing with something illegal, like possession of like THC, or large amounts of marijuana, or just if they're doing something illegal, that's when the
Right.
cops get involved. Other than that, we deal with the other discipline issues, um, based on our district policy, you know.
Yes.
But
Wow.
yeah, we do have students that, and I'm going to talk in general. I'm not just going to say the district where I'm at currently,
Right.
but in the districts that I've worked in, we have students that are on probation. We have their probation officers show up and check on them at school. Unfortunately, what I'm seeing this year, and I guess because in last year even, because of COVID, a lot of judges don't want to hear anything they don't want anything to do with attendance, or I remember last year we couldn't send anybody. We actually had an SRO at the campus where I worked at,
Wow.
and the kid was in possession, and they couldn't take him in because the jails were closed.
Mm.
So essentially, nothing really happened to the kid. So
No
except
accountability, no consequences.
right,
Wow.
COVID is like,
the
party for,
excuse, the, the
Wow.
excuse not to do anything. Yeah.
Man. And so, and Adela, how would you want to tie this into this? I mean, what would you love to happen here? There's this kid here that's obviously doing some stuff that needs to be handled by by your office, but it's being done at the school district. And so, how do the two work together? I mean, is there a situation now where they're working together, or does that need to be created? I mean,
I
I'm not
don't.
talking about just phone calls. I'm talking about
No,
an
no,
actual,
no, no.
maybe a third, maybe a third office in between that ties them together. That kind of deal.
There's what I want to do is I want to have a dialogue with educators, and for them to expose to me what their problems are, to see if I can help, to see if I, first of all, I need to know if I have the authority to do it. I mean, I got to follow the law. So, but if I do have the authority, the legal authority to get involved, I will. That's all I can say. I want to help teachers as much as possible in preventing children from entering the criminal justice system, but not like that. Not like, oh, he did something wrong and we're just not going to accept him. Well, that's not helping the child because he's not learning anything.
Right.
But I want to have a meaningful discussion with educators so that they can give me guidance on what they think is going on. Like, for example, the mental issues that, like you say, sometimes it's manipulation. Not all the time, but sometimes it is manipulation. Everybody's bipolar. Everybody is depressed, and it's okay to do all of these. Uh,
Like they have an excuse
criminal
for
acts.
bad behavior, in a
Yeah.
sense.
Correct.
Well, let me ask you this. Sharky says, do you feel how do you feel about the schools not reporting drugs on kids or drug use to protect this campus reputation? Oh, definitely not at my school. That never happens at my school.
Yeah.
Is that one of the reasons why maybe not? Or well, let me ask you this: do you guys have a court system in place at school to where you guys can put this kid on a trial there at school? Do you have that ability?
We have hearings. So whenever a student commits something that an act that would send them to an alternative campus for some reason or another, there's hearings. And this is regardless of what district you work in. Every district has a hearing. There is a hearing officer. They listen to the case. The parents are there, the students are there, and they go over the actions, what happened, and then the hearing officer makes a determination as to whether or not the student needs to attend the alternative campus. So I've sat in on some of those hearings. I've actually oversaw a hearing in the previous district where I was at. It can be touchy, and it doesn't, and it's not always just drugs or
Right.
sometimes it's just persistent misbehavior as to the reason why we have a hearing like that, or somebody that's just constantly skipping, doesn't make it to class, and
Right.
there has to be consequences.
Yeah,
So,
but is there a tougher level, or is there a higher order level where I don't know, in case of rapes, or in case of sexual contact, or
we would, yeah.
sex, drugs, or
At the campus level, we don't when
You
it's
don't deal with that.
when it's considered criminal, we don't deal with that.
Yeah, they refer it to the district court.
Yeah.
Wow.
We actually have an officer come in. In the previous campus that I was at, we had, like I said, our SROs were actually they worked with the sheriff's department, and they would actually did the criminal investigation, and
See?
they would bring in the witnesses. He had an office there in the front office of the school district, and he did his investigation there, and they were actually able to arrest somebody, as an outcome of his investigation. So
Wow.
yeah.
So is that something that, I mean, would you like to improve that system, Adela? Or I mean, do you see
Well,
flaws in
this
that?
is
Because I mean, obviously, I think they're doing what they need to be doing, but
yeah.
maybe from your point of view, there's some holes in that.
This is one of the complaints, and is, and I don't know if that I wanted to address with the educators, is the vape pen crime. It's a crime. It's a crime. Okay, to be smoking the THC or the with the vape pen.
Hmm.
It's, and the
Right.
thing is, it's a state jail felony. But if that child takes that vape pen to school, it rises to the level of a third degree felony, which
Wow.
is up to 10 years in jail if they were an adult. And, theoretically, they could be given a determinate sentence of up to 10 years as well, where, it's complicated how that works. But anyway, what I'm trying to say is, because it's illegal and because it's a felony and so forth, it comes to the district court.
Mm.
And my question is, some of those cases, it's a situation where it's a good kid that decided, that made the wrong decision to be
Maybe he
smoking
wanted
that.
to try it. Maybe he wanted to try drugs. I mean, I remember in the sixth grade. I mean, I went to Cummings Middle School. Me and my buddies on one side, we said, you know what, let's try cigarettes. And we all said, okay, let's put some money together. You know, cigarettes were expensive at the time. That's the reason I don't smoke, because it was expensive at the time. But I remember, I think I brought a box of matches. Some other guy brought, whatever. We all brought something, and so we went across the street into the park, and I still remember the tree we used to hang out all the time, and everybody got a cigarette and everybody lit it up, and we tried it. The first thing I did was, but at that point we could have been caught, and we could have been, I don't know, expelled from school and maybe worse. But it was done because you're curious, for one, curious, and maybe dumb, and the thing. But I mean, that could also be said. Okay, let's try it with a pill. Let's try it with marijuana. Let's try it with whatever is out there, and so that type of kid, I mean,
Well, let me tell you, I've interviewed a lot of kids that have been caught, and we always expect it to be the kid that that looks like he's a gangbanger, or that looks
right,
like this, or appearances are deceiving.
right, right,
Yes,
And a lot of
yes,
times these kids
yes.
are like, miss, if you only knew the kids that are the ones that are really doing the drugs, you
and
would
some
be
that have
shocked.
some money, they're
You would be
doing
shocked.
it.
Yeah, yeah. And he goes, and I could tell you who they are, but I'm not a snitch. And I've heard it from more than one kid. But I
Right,
want to go back and address Sharky's question, because
right, right,
he asked if sometimes if school districts don't report drugs or kids, using drugs, or get caught with them because of the reputation. I absolutely believe that a lot of school districts don't report it. They're coerced to, yeah, yes, it does happen in certain districts. They're, just because they want to keep that, hey, we're an A-rated school or an A-rated district. And so, they don't want that reputation. They want to bring the kids that are going to early college, or that can bring in good test scores,
right,
make their
right,
school look good. But if there's something that comes out on the news with drugs, or if they go and look up on TEA the reports and see that there's been issues with drugs, well, they might not send their kids there.
right. And what's this deal with K9s?
So I know that the district where I currently work at, we last year, I guess, or prior to COVID, they had a contract, and we no longer have a contract. I don't know the details. Like I said, I wasn't here. I do know where I worked at previously. They still do it once in a while.
And it's
Um,
legal.
yes,
It's not against the Fourth Amendment to bring the canine dog. All right.
Orale.
yeah,
So now
yeah,
we got it from an expert.
Yeah.
It is legal to bring the canine dogs into your
Right.
district.
Right.
Now,
but it does cost money.
it does cost money, but if you're not doing it, hey, why aren't you doing it?
Yeah, yeah.
Wow, interesting.
Maybe that's an idea that I might, I'm gonna see if I can. Maybe Elon Musk will give me money to
There you
get
go.
some canine dogs.
Well, some grants. If
Yeah.
a district can't afford it, then maybe we can go by means of a grant or something.
We'll check it out.
Yeah.
So those are ideas, to, like I said, there has to be accountability and positive reinforcement, of
Yeah,
course.
yeah,
Yeah,
definitely,
for sure.
definitely that accountability, positive, and definitely education,
And
and
for
more
education,
education. Yeah,
education.
definitely.
Yeah.
And of course, let me ask you this: what about considering constitutional issues such as possession and speedy trial, or process and speedy trial? I mean, this is more your line, Della, but I mean, do you see any?
Oh,
I don't know if Angela wants to
yeah.
speak on this, but
That's the issue that I was talking about, where they are detained for excessive amount of time, waiting to be evaluated. I think there might be some constitutional issues there, and violations of speedy trial, because let's not forget that just because they're minors, that doesn't mean that they don't have the same constitutional rights that
right.
adults have.
Right. Now, let me ask you this. These kids are obviously going to school, but this is not a school issue because they called the cops. Once they call the cops, then it becomes a district issue, right? It falls into your
See,
side
right,
of the
right,
fence,
yes,
right?
yes.
Before, like for instance, some kid tells the teacher, "Oh, my big brother, fumbled me, or he forced me to have sex or whatever." Now it's a school issue, and then how does, at that point, I guess, I mean, it depends who's responsible at that point. Is the school that's responsible to call the district, or do you guys, what do you guys do in a situation like that? I mean, when somebody tells the teacher, obviously the teacher has to report that to their higher ups, to an administrator or principal, somebody. I mean, because the teacher
If
can't be
it's
the
Yeah.
decision maker in that situation.
A lot of times in a case like that, a teacher will already have reported something like that to they have the obligation to report it to what do you call it? CPS.
Okay.
Right, and then of course, out of courtesy, usually the teacher would report it to a district administrator, and that would definitely have, I mean, we call the cops. I mean,
Right.
that's what we
Immediately.
do, and then it goes over there to the
Wow.
district.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So there's certain things where they just go boom boom, and Adela gets
See?
it, and then there's certain things where you guys deal with it, and then maybe Adela gets it, or maybe you guys take care of it. And I think that I mean, in house, I think I like the idea about in house, taking care of it in house, because once it gets into the system, then obviously the kid's going to be there for up to a month until he gets evaluated. Am I right, Adela? For sure.
See? No, I
Sometimes,
mean, sometimes yes. And now
sometimes
because of
longer.
no, but it takes from 20 days, up to a month. Would you like to be in jail up to
Yeah.
20 days?
Nope.
You know,
Adela,
uh,
what kind of assessments are they doing?
well, they have to be evaluated by a psychiatrist regarding whether they are a danger to the community, or
Okay.
to themselves. And this usually happens in violent offenses. And of course, sexual assault is a violent offense, but we're talking about 10-year-olds sometimes, because,
Wow.
sometimes they're 10, 11, or 12, 13, young. And
Yeah.
they either fondled, or they did touched inappropriately a younger family member, and
Mhm.
because of that, they have to they go to the detention center where they are being held until they're evaluated, and then they cannot go back to their family because the victim lives there, and the victim is a child also, a
Hmm.
younger child that needs to be protected.
Mhm.
And then we have the issue of, okay, now he's been evaluated, now he needs to be placed in a separated. All of this while he is still not found guilty of anything. There is a
Yeah.
presumption of innocence.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of, that's where the constitutional issues come up. Is
Yeah.
if he were an adult, he would get out on bond, and but since he's a child that needs to be evaluated and placed, he's being incarcerated. Like
Yeah.
that.
They're
That's
Wow.
they're
and
they're guilty until proven innocent.
yeah, and that you have this little kid there, and it's so easy. It's so easy to tell the little kid, hey, if you sign this paper, you're going to get treatment, you're going to get this, and you're going to get probation. And after you're incarcerated, all those, of course, what does the kid know? It,
Yeah.
They don't know their rights. I mean, nobody's speaking for them, and yeah,
Even adults do it.
and I mean, they're scared. Yeah, I can
Even
see that.
adults get scared like that. So can
Yeah,
you
yeah.
imagine a child?
Con más ganas. Yeah,
I
that's right.
I I think that needs to be addressed a little bit, with more caution and more compassion. I'm not. Some of them are bad. Some of them do terrible things, but some of them, like I said, it's not, the facts do not
Mhm.
merit the incarceration for that. And now because of COVID, oh my lord, the waiting time is even longer.
Mhm.
Wow, wow. No, okay, he said Sharky, yeah. How about foster care to the kids being held? Foster care, foster care. Well, I think that's where it goes because you
See,
were saying that at some point they can't go back home because
no,
they touched their little sister or their little cousin or
they,
whatever, and they can't go back home.
So
You
would
know?
they
oh,
place him in another home with other younger children?
no,
Oh,
I
that's a good
mean,
point. Yeah.
no, they have to wait until they find a foster home, and
Wow,
sometimes because of that issue that they have, it's difficult to find placement.
mhm.
wow. So that kid, wow. He's really in
Sometimes
the system,
the
and that's why
parents,
they go into drugs because then all of a sudden they're in that cell and they're approached and no one loves you. Hey, we're gonna love you in this
you did
gang,
this,
and
you
they
did
get pulled.
you did this horrible thing. It's a horrible thing that you did. You're now a terrible person, a sexual terrible person, and they're treated like criminals at a very young age. And then they grow up to be criminals.
Yeah,
So what I want to do is see if there's a way to give them due process that is
faster.
fair,
Yeah.
uh, that is faster. The process has to move faster. That's all I can say. I'm um, I have seen it, and other fellow prosecutors have seen it, and they, were shocked. And the parents, not all cases, okay, not all, in some cases, the parents regret having called the police because now they don't know what to do. Now their child is in jail. They can't bring him home because the little sibling is there. And not all the time is it's sexual abuse. I had a case where older sibling tried to held
Strangle.
them,
Yeah,
he didn't strangle, but he did this, and
yeah,
the
choke
police
them.
was called, and it was a big deal. He was 16, the younger brother was like 10, and it was a big deal. And then the parents really didn't know how to get him out of that mess that he was in. And they regretted having called the police. They kept on telling us, us prosecutors, I thought
Well,
you
let me
guys were
ask
going
you
to help
this:
us.
could there be some talks done at home? Where
Yes.
before they get into the system? Because I would say, okay, I mean, hey, you know what? Oye, mijo, no juegues así, o no lo agarres así, o no monoseyes, or eso está mal, or this is what can happen. In the case of Ventula, have you ever heard of? I know you have, but or does this happen in your district? Are many prisoners or people that have been in bad ways, are they able to come into the street and into the school system and talk to kids about what their future could be if they stay on that same path?
Well,
I mean,
usually
not
we
to
have,
all the kids,
yeah,
obviously, but
yeah, no. Usually, I'll tell you what happens when somebody that has a record comes on campus. We
yeah,
have a system, and when we run their driver's license through that system, it sends out an alert. And because those people are not supposed to be around children,
right,
well, I mean, we're on the watch.
right,
That's
right,
when our security guards are watching them. Administration. The previous district I had, we all got an alert on our phones, and we immediately all went, to the front. Now, the people that have spoken to our students about situations like that, believe it or not, we've had Border Patrol go before, and they have wonderful presentations. They talk a lot about a lot of different things, like getting involved in gangs and prostitution and things like that, and drugs. So, I think it would be ideal that they could hear somebody like that, but I don't know, maybe. I don't know how that would work with the school
right,
district. I don't think I don't think I've ever been at a district where they've tried it. Maybe a
right,
Zoom. I don't know.
right.
With
I've
with
seen it. I've seen it in a Texas Walker episode. Where,
Yeah.
but that was like a center, like and he brought in some bad dudes from prison, and then he was telling his gang members, "Hey, this is how it's going to be if you keep going on the path. You're either going to die, or you're going to end up like us in prison." But the idea is there, but how do you make that happen? And will it be beneficial?
Right.
Adela, I mean, talk to us about that, Adela. Bring that topic back
the
up.
way Judge Vela would do it is the prisoner would come into the auditorium of Hannah High School, and he would be in chains. The ones that have the chains on the
On the
waist
side and on the
and
bottom
like
and the
this, and the ones on the ankles. I mean, fully chained
yeah,
and with guards and everything. And he would stand in the middle of the stage and tell all the students, please don't get involved in drug trafficking. I'm going to be in federal prison for X amount of years,
Yeah.
and it's not worth it. So that's how Judge Vela did it. I don't know if a school will allow me to do it, but that's what I want to do.
I think it would make an impression for sure.
mm,
Because a lot of times these kids, they're immature, their
right,
brains are not fully developed. All they think about is making a good impression on their peers. And so they may do some things that later on in life, it could, they're going to regret it, especially if they're 17, because then now they have a record.
right,
Yeah.
Um, and that's horrible, you know. Um, so I think that would make a big impression on those kids. Maybe wake them up a little bit and think, "Oh my gosh, that could be me if I'm not careful."
right. Yeah.
Correct. Correct.
I don't know. I mean, that's something you need to push, Adela. And I think, I mean, if it was done once, it can be done again. And it's like,
That's
unless
right.
somebody at some point says, "Ay, pobrecito prisoner. I mean, lo están tratando mal. They're humiliating
Oh,
him in the front." And, I
but uh,
Never know.
what what Judge Vela would do with
uh-huh,
those prisoners, it was with their consent and the consent of their lawyer, and
right,
they would get a reduction in their sentence for
right,
cooperating with us for doing
right,
that.
right.
I think then, and at the school level, obviously, it would have to be approved at the district level, the top
Yeah, yeah.
superintendent. But
The
then
board
parents would also have to sign some sort of a
waiver.
release paper, where they're okay with
Okay.
their child,
Yeah.
seeing that.
Exposed. Yeah. Okay.
Uh-huh.
Wow.
uh, what about taking them to the jails? And I'm talking about,
Like a
I know
tour.
that give them a jail tour.
Yeah. This
Yeah.
is Sharky. That needs to be a program around the valley, maybe even middle schools. Yeah,
Oh yeah,
yeah.
starting
I
young.
think it. Hey, I would say elementary. Let's scare them. Let's scare them right from the beginning. I mean,
Scare them
but
right
but
from the
but
beginning.
but you know what? It's the yeah. I mean, you always still you want to improve a program, and I don't care if it's sports, if it's chess, it's whatever. For me, to improve my chess program, I start in the bottom. I start with the first and second graders and build up. Of
Yeah.
course, you're working with everybody else, but you always build in the bottom. You always build in the foundation. You have a solid foundation, everybody else is going to follow the path. And I think if we teach our elementary kids to become better, productive citizens, to respect the flag, to respect the Constitution, to know the Constitution, to that kind of deal. I think that we would have more productive citizens. Of course, there's some issues in between all that. No longer being. I don't know. Do kids say the Pledge of Allegiance at school
Oh yes,
or
every day,
every day?
every day,
I mean,
and the
because
Texas Pledge.
And
because at some point I was under understanding that wasn't even being done anymore. And
Oh no, we do it every single day, and we also have a moment of silence.
oh man, so that's great. No, okay, bueno, okay, bueno. But stuff like that is what we need. We need programs out there, because yeah, we're losing a lot of kids to gangs. We're losing a lot of kids to other crimes that could very much be saved because they're just being naive, dumb, whatever, making bad decisions. And yeah, you have your critical, your career minded those type of kids that are already they're already on that mindset, and it's going to be hard to change those guys. But I think the percentage is very low of the bad kids.
correct.
Would you say that, Angela, that the
Oh yeah,
percentage is very low of the bad kids?
Yes.
yeah,
Unfortunately,
definitely.
unfortunately, a couple of kids may give the school a bad reputation, or say no, but I know in years past we would say no, esa escuela me puros pachucos, or esos all bunch of druggies on that school, and it's not so. It's just maybe 5 or 6 kids, and
Right.
where you have 1,000 kids going to that school, and come on, it
Well,
shouldn't even matter. But
yeah, I did my internship for principal at an alternative school, and I really enjoyed it. I loved it there, and I had about 5 groups of 20 different kids from different grade levels, 9 through 12. I taught English and did my internship at the same time. And I'll tell you what, the kids they're sent to the alternative center for 30 days. They complete their time, and then they go back to their campus, and then within a week they're back. And so what that's telling me is the consequences that the school districts are giving them aren't always doing justice to the kids.
wow,
And in fact, in that particular district, I'm not going to name districts, it's not the district I'm in now, but in that particular district, I've heard some kids say, Miss, I didn't even know what a bar is until I got here, and now I know what a bar is.
mm-hmm.
So they learn things from each other,
Right.
and some people say, well, we just want to, they just want to send all that group of that handful of kids that are bad. Let's just send them to the alternative center so our campus can be a good campus.
Right.
We don't have to deal with them anymore.
And I think a lot of times some of these bad kids, they respond to respect. And I know this because if you treat them with respect, they will respect you, and that's key to changing their minds. This is true because that's why they go into the gangs, because they want that respect, they want that love that they're not going. So respect is a very important issue.
I agree.
And so because you see that honor, that you see that loyalty, you see that respect in gangs, and so a lot of times when you can get a hold of that, they're gonna follow you, and then that's what they change. He says, Sharky says, hey, thank you for all the great information and awesome ideas. We are hopefully headed in the right direction. Our kids are our future, and that is key.
They are.
We have to do this because the kids are our future. They're the ones that are going to lead this country. They're the ones that are going to be, the ones in charge of our systems and all that. And so, we need productive citizens out there. We need
Yeah.
and Angela, you're doing a great job as administrator at school. And Adela, we wish you all the best. And as judge and taking over this project, and man, I hope all your plans are able to happen because we need them. We need this. We need to stop this early on. We need to stop this early on, and we need to prevent. I think you said it. You said it best when you said prevention is key. Prevention is key, guys, and we need to have definitely a lot of education on these issues. And we cannot hide. We cannot put this under the bookshelf or stick it in the garage somewhere. This needs to be out in the light. It needs to be spoken about. And I don't know, maybe some committees where we can get some school board members or some educators involved with some lawyers and stuff like that, and come into some decisions that create a better system in a sense. I know the school's doing its best, and you guys are at the district courts are doing your best, but somehow there's a gap.
Yeah.
Am I right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so let's fix that gap, guys. We'll cut it. We'll cut it short. We might bring this topic back again. I think this is going to be really exciting. I know Adela has a whole lot of more information to give us about that. Angela, now that you've seen this topic, I'm sure you want to bring in your $5 worth. Because I know you're very knowledgeable about that, and I love the fact that I called you and you said sure, I'll come on, because I felt that administrative point of view was very useful in this conversation, and I think Adela just went, "Oh, great!"
Yeah, we do have to work together, most definitely, and a lot of times there is a lack of communication, and not because one part of the other doesn't want to. It's just we're both all so busy. So but we need to make time, because the kids are our future. They're our future leaders, and so we need to take care of them.
Yeah. Well, great, guys. Well, Angela, we'll let you go. Adela, thank you, and congratulations on becoming our next judge. I mean, it won't be official until January, but we already know you're it. So I'll send you backstage, guys. Thank you for coming in. Angela, thank you. Adela, thank you for coming in. All right, guys, we thank you. This is Royal with Talk Show Central RTV style. We bid you good night. We will see you again on Sunday. We have Andy Bustamante coming in. She's a Tejano diva, guys, and she's going to be singing and telling us her story, guys. We see you. Good night.